Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are doing something a little different. We're sort of walking up to the edge of a cliff.
A literal cliff.
Historically and I guess metaphorically speaking, we are looking at a text that gives you absolute emotional whiplash.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
It just swings from the darkest, most claustrophobic gloom you can possibly imagine to this blinding, radiant light. And it does it in like the blink of an eye.
It really is a study in extremes. We're unpacking Isaiah chapter 25 from the King James Version today. But you're right, you can't. You can't just parachute into chapter 25 and expect it to make sense.
Right, because context is king. I was reading through the background notes you sent over, and scholars call this whole section the little apocalypse, which frankly sounds like a paradox to me. How can an apocalypse be little?
It's a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? It's only called little because, well, it's shorter than the book of Revelation.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the scope is just as massive. This is Isaiah chapters 24 through 27. And apocalypse here doesn't just mean disaster, which is, how we use the word in movies.
Right, like end of the world stuff.
The Greek word apocalypsis actually means an unveiling. It's pulling back the curtain on these cosmic scale events, global judgment, the end of the age, and, the final setting right of the entire universe.
So we're in the middle of this unveiling. And to get why chapter 25 is such a huge deal, we really have to look at what just happened in chapter 24.
We have to.
I was reading the notes on 24, and wow, it reads like a horror movie script.
It's bleak.
Bleak is an understatement. It's describing the earth being utterly broken down, the inhabitants burned, joy just withered away. It literally says the mirth of the land is gone.
And it ends with this cosmic imagery. The moon is confounded, the sun is ashamed, because God's glory is just too bright for them.
Exactly. The whole world is in devastation. The city of man, which is all of human civilization, is just crushed. And then there's no intermission.
No pause at all.
There's no commercial break. Chapter 25 just erupts. It breaks the silence of all that devastation with a hymn.
A song of praise right in the middle of the revel.
So yeah, that's kind of our mission for today. We're going to track this movement. We're going to go from the ruins of human pride up a mountain to a very, very strange feast. And finally, and I really want to get into this later, to this very graphic, almost disturbing judgment of a nation called Moab.
And we've got a serious stack of sources to help us navigate this. We've got theological essays, some really heavy verse-by-verse commentaries, and we're going to need to pull in some crucial cross-reference material from the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, because you actually can't understand the resurrection theology in this chapter without seeing how Jesus himself used it.
Okay, so buckle up. Let's jump into section 1, the foundation of praise.
Verses 1 through 3.
It starts with this shift that I found really, really interesting. Amidst all this global fire and destruction, it just gets incredibly personal. Verse 1, O Lord, thou art my God. I will exalt thee. I will praise thy name, for thou hast done wonderful things. Thy counsels of old are faithfulness and truth.
That shift to thou art my God is everything. Isaiah isn't just a reporter here.
No.
He's not a journalist watching the end of the world and just, taking notes. He's a worshiper.
He's participating in it.
He's experiencing it. But look at why he's praising. This is the key insight for you, the listener. He's not praising God just because, wow, that was a cool miracle. He praises him for thy counsels of old.
That phrase really stuck out to me. Councils of old, it sounds so, architectural, like a blueprint.
That's a great way to put it. The Hebrew implies these are plans formed in the deep past, maybe even eternity past.
Wow.
And this is crucial because when we look at the world, especially when things are chaotic, like they were in chapter 24, it feels so random. It feels like history is just a runaway train.
Or that God is just reacting to everything. Like, oh no, humanity did this, I better scramble and fix it.
Precisely. But counsels of old tells us that God is never reactive. He is never in panic mode. The judgment, the salvation, the history that we see playing out before our eyes, it's all just the execution of an ancient, stable, pre-written reality.
And it says these counsels are faithfulness and truth.
Absolute reliability. It means the script was written long before the actors ever took the stage. For a believer, that is the ultimate bedrock of assurance. It means you aren't living in an accident.
That is strangely comforting, actually. But then verse 2 shows us what that plan actually does to human power. And this is where we get our first major symbol.
Right, the city.
For thou hast made of a city an heap, of a defenced city a ruin. A palace of strangers to be no city, it shall never be built. Now, help me out here. Do we know which city this is? Is it supposed to be Babylon, Nineveh?
That's the million-dollar question. And the answer is, yes and no.
Aha, clear as mud. Thanks.
I mean, in this specific section of Isaiah, the city is nameless, and that is absolutely deliberate.
Why?
Well, if Isaiah had just said Babylon, we'd immediately think about ancient Iraq,
Yeah.
If he'd said Rome, we just think about the Caesars. By leaving it nameless, the city becomes an archetype.
So it's a stand-in for something bigger.
It represents the city of man. It represents all human systems of power, of pride, of rebellion against God, whether that's ancient Babylon or the Roman Empire or, frankly, the modern secular state.
It's the defense city, the walls we build to feel safe without needing God.
Exactly. And the text calls it a palace of strangers.
That's a weird phrase. What does that mean?
It implies alienation. A stranger here is someone who is estranged from God. So this city is the headquarters of alienation. It's impressive, sure, it's a palace, but God's plan turns it into a heap, a pile of rubble.
And it says, it shall never be built. That sounds permanent, final.
It is the permanent dismantling of human-centered pride. But here's the twist. Look at the reaction in verse 3.
Okay, let's see.
Usually when you destroy a city, the people fight back, right?
Yeah.
Or they curse you. But read what verse 3 says.
Therefore shall the strong people glorify thee. The city of the terrible nations shall fear thee. Wait a minute. Terrible nations. These are the bad guys.
Terrible here doesn't mean bad at their job.
Right.
It means terrifying, ruthless. These are the superpowers of the world, the ones with the big armies.
And they are glorifying God. That seems wrong.
They are. But, and this is a really important nuance we need to catch, this isn't necessarily the joyful praise of the redeemed. We'll get to that kind of praise later.
So what is it then?
This is the compulsory acknowledgement of the conqueror.
Oh, I get it. It's like when the villain is finally beaten and he has to look up from the ground bloodied and say, okay, you win.
Exactly that. It's the every knee shall bow moment from the book of Philippians. When the city of man finally collapses, even the most ruthless nations have no choice but to admit that their power was just an illusion. The destruction of human pride makes God's power completely undeniable.
That's a heavy image. The dust settling on the ruins of the city and the tough guys kneeling in the rubble.
It's a total reversal.
But then instantly, the camera cuts. We go to section 2. We move from all that rubble to a storm shelter.
Right. Verses 4 and 5, the tone shifts dramatically from God the destroyer to God the refuge.
Verse 4. For thou hast been a strength to the poor, a strength to the needy in his distress, a refuge from the storm, a shadow from the heat, when the blast of the terrible ones is as a storm against the wall.
I love the physics of these metaphors. Isaiah is such a poet.
Storm against the wall. It's so visceral, you can almost feel it.
Think about it. A wall doesn't move. A storm hits it with everything it has. Wind, rain, debris. It just batters it. That is what persecution feels like. The city of man, those terrible ones. They batter the poor and the needy. They try to erode you.
And then there's the other metaphor. Heat in a dry place. That's not impact. That's pressure.
It's oppression. It's relentless. It just drains the life right out of you. It's that feeling of living in a system that is designed from the ground up to exhaust you.
Yeah.
But look at who God is in the middle of all that. He isn't just watching from a distance.
He is a refuge and a shadow.
Let's go back to the physics of that. How does a shadow work? Does a cloud have to get in a fist fight with the sun?
No. It just floats in front of it. It just gets in the way.
It just intervenes. It's effortless. And verse 5 elaborates on this. Thou shalt bring down the noise of strangers as the heat in a dry place, even the heat with the shadow of a cloud.
The noise of strangers, that feels so modern. The 24-hour news cycle, the shouting on social media, the propaganda.
It's the constant clamor of the world system. It's loud, it's intimidating, it's meant to wear you down,
Right.
But God silences it as easily as a cloud blocks the sun.
And it says, he brings low the branch of the terrible ones. That sounds like a villain group in a fantasy novel.
Huh? It does. It refers to the lineage, the offspring, the continuation of the ruthless. God just cuts it off.
Yeah.
So pause for a second and look at the picture we've painted so far.
Okay. The proud city is a heap of smoking ruins. The ruthless armies are on their knees, forced to admit defeat. The poor are safe. cooling off in God's shadow.
And the noise is gone.
It's quiet.
And now that the noise of the world is finally silenced, we can hear something else.
We hear, is that dinner being served?
Exactly. We're moving to section 3, and this is, hands down, one of my favorite parts of the entire Old Testament. Verses 6 and 7. We leave the city, and we go to the mountain.
The contrast is pretty stark, isn't it? The city was man's best effort. The mountain, which is Mount Zion, is God's turf.
And verse 6 describes, well, you called it a party. It's the Messianic banquet.
Let's read the menu because it's so specific. And in this mountain shall the Lord of hosts make unto all people a feast of fat things, a feast of wines on the lees, of fat things full of marrow, of wines on the lees well refined. Expert translation needed here. Fat things and marrow. To us today, that sounds like a heart attack on a plate.
Huh. Yeah, our cardiologist would not approve.
But in 700 BC.
In that context, fat and marrow represented the absolute best, the richest, most calorie-dense, most sustaining parts of the animal. If you were poor, you ate gristle. You ate the lean, tough meat. Fat things full of marrow symbolizes deep, soul-level satisfaction.
I like that.
The world offers a feast of consumerism. It's like junk food that leaves you empty an hour later. This feast hits the soul. It nourishes you deeply.
And the wines on the lees. I actually looked this up before the show because I had no idea what a lee was.
Okay, tell us about the lees.
So lees are the sediment, the dead yeast, the great skins, all the bits that settle at the bottom of the barrel during fermentation. And apparently, most winemakers filter that stuff out pretty quickly.
Right, to clarify the wine.
But if you leave the wine on the lees for a long time, it's risky. But it absorbs more flavor, it gets more body, it becomes stronger, more complex.
Exactly. But then the verse adds that crucial detail. Well refined.
Which means, eventually, after it has aged and gained all that character, you carefully strain it, so it's perfect.
So put that all together. What kind of joy is this describing? This isn't cheap boxed wine. This isn't some instant gratification. Wines on the lees speaks of a joy that has been aged. It has history. It has depth. It's a complex, ancient joy that God has been preparing for his people over centuries.
That is a beautiful image. It's not a quick fix. It's a matured salvation. But I noticed the guest list is surprising, too.
Ah, yes. Unto all people.
That feels huge for the Old Testament, doesn't it? Usually the focus is unto Israel.
It is radical. This is a global invitation. This is a massive hint of the Great Commission to come. It anticipates that vision in the book of Revelation where you see people from every tribe, tongue, and nation sitting together at the table.
It connects right to Jesus' parables.
Absolutely. The kingdom of heaven is like a king preparing a wedding feast.
And in Matthew 8:11, Jesus says, "Many shall come from the east and west and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob." This is that feast.
It is, but there is a problem.
There's always a problem.
There's something blocking the nations from even seeing this mountain. There is a cover charge that no one can pay. Or maybe more accurately, a barrier that no one can pass through.
Verse 7. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people and the veil that is spread over all nations. A veil spread over all nations. That sounds incredible, honest. Is this like a physical veil?
It's a metaphor with layers, pun intended. First, think about a funeral. In the ancient Near East, what did you do when you were mourning? You covered your face. So a covering cast over all people is like a global shroud of sorrow.
And why is everyone grieving?
Because of death. Everyone dies. Everyone mourns. It's the universal human experience.
Okay, so it's a shroud of death.
Right. But there's a second layer to it. Spiritual blindness. The veil also represents our inability to see God clearly. We're alienated. We're just groping around in the dark.
So it's like a thick fog that just sits over the entire human race.
A thick, impenetrable shroud. And you have to notice the verb that's used. The text says God will destroy it. He doesn't just lift it up for a little peek. The Hebrew word implies swallowing it up or completely annihilating it.
That reminds me of the temple veil tearing from top to bottom when Jesus died.
That is the physical manifestation of this spiritual reality. That's the perfect connection to make. Our sources point to 2 Corinthians 3, where the Apostle Paul says this very veil is done away in Christ. God violently tears the covering off so that the nations can finally see the feast.
And once that veil of death and blindness is gone, we get to the main event.
We do.
Section 4, verse 8. If this chapter is a mountain, I feel like this verse is the absolute summit.
He will swallow up death in victory, and the Lord God will wipe away tears from off all faces.
That phrasing, swallow up death, it's such a reversal. Usually death is the one doing all the swallowing.
Exactly. The grave Sheol in the Hebrew is always described as having this insatiable appetite. It swallows kings, it swallows cities, it swallows everyone. But here, the tables are completely turned, the swallower gets swallowed.
It's the total annihilation of the ultimate enemy. But then, right after that huge cosmic victory, the scale changes so dramatically. The Lord God will wipe away tears from off all faces.
That is, for me, the most moving part of the entire chapter.
It's so tender. It's not some distant king issuing a decree from on high saying sorrow is now illegal. It's a father touching your face.
It implies proximity. To wipe away a tear, you have to be close. It suggests that God acknowledges the real pain that death caused. He doesn't just fix the problem abstractly. He heals the personal wound.
And it says, he removes the rebuke of his people, the shame and disgrace of being the downtrodden faithful all those years.
Yes, that public vindication is part of it too.
Now, we have to pause here and do a bit of a theological deep dive, because this verse isn't just beautiful poetry, is it? This is the bedrock of resurrection theology.
It is. The Apostle Paul quotes this verse directly in 1 Corinthians 15:54. Death is swallowed up in victory. For Paul, Isaiah 25 is fulfilled in the resurrection of Jesus Christ and the future resurrection of all believers.
And our source material brought up a really interesting connection to the Gospels, specifically a debate Jesus had with the Sadducees. Can we unpack that? Because I think a lot of people probably miss the connection to Isaiah here.
Oh, this is fascinating. So let's set the scene. Matthew 22, the Sadducees come to Jesus. Now, who were the Sadducees?
They were the religious elite, right? The wealthy, powerful ones. Yeah. And they were materialists, correct?
Basically, yes. They did not believe in the resurrection of the body. They didn't believe in angels or spirits. For them, when you're dead, you're dead.
Okay.
And crucially, they only accepted the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, as authoritative scripture. They didn't put much stock in the prophets like Isaiah.
So they come to Jesus with this ridiculous hypothetical story about a woman who had 7 husbands.
Right.
And they ask, so in the resurrection, whose wife will she be? They're basically trolling him.
They are. They're trying to make the whole idea of resurrection look illogical and foolish. And Jesus just shuts them down completely. He looks at them and says, "Ye do err, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of God."
Not knowing the scriptures. Ouch, that had to sting the religious leaders.
And then Jesus does something brilliant. He proves the resurrection using their preferred text, the Torah. He quotes Exodus 3:6, where God says to Moses at the burning bush, "I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob."
Not I was.
Exactly, I am. Jesus argues, God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. Therefore, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob must still be alive in some sense, awaiting their resurrection.
That is absolutely brilliant logic, but how does that connect back to Isaiah 25?
Because Isaiah 25:8 is the prophetic explainer of how that is possible. The only reason Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob can still be considered living, the only reason death doesn't get the final word, is because God had already promised through Isaiah that he would one day swallow up death.
Ah, I see.
Jesus is affirming that the power of God, the very power the Sadducees denied, is precisely this death-swallowing power that Isaiah predicted.
So the Sadducees were stuck in the city of man, mindset materialistic, veiled, unable to see the bigger picture.
They were. And Jesus was pointing them to the mountain, to a reality beyond their limited view. The Sadducees thought death was the end. Isaiah says death is just an appetizer for God. He swallows it whole.
And that leads us perfectly to the reaction of the people who do believe. Section 5, verse 9.
And it shall be said in that day, "Lo, this is our God. We have waited for him, and he will save us. This is the Lord. We have waited for him. We will be glad and rejoice in his salvation."
There's a key word there that appears twice, and it's so important. Waited.
We have waited for him.
That implies it wasn't easy. It implies there was a delay. It wasn't instant.
It implies patience through that storm and that heat we talked about back in verse 4. You know, the defining characteristic of the faithful in this text isn't that they fought back or that they built their own city or tried to fix the world with their own politics.
It's that they waited.
They waited.
That is so tough for us today. I mean, we live in a culture that demands instant gratification for everything. We want the city to be fixed now.
But the mountain mentality is one of patient expectation. And notice the payoff. The payoff for all that waiting isn't just a solution, it's a person.
Lao, this is our God.
It's recognition. It's like pointing and saying, there he is, the one we trusted all this time. He actually showed up.
It's vindication. We will be glad and rejoice in his salvation.
And that joy is the natural explosive response to the removal of the veil. When you finally see him face to face, all the years of waiting finally make sense.
Okay, so let's just take a breath. We're high on the mountain now. We've had the feast of marrow and wine. Death has been swallowed. Everyone is crying happy tears. The veil is gone. It feels like a perfect ending.
But it's not the ending.
No, it is not. Section 6 happens. And honestly, this part is jarring. It's a real shock to the system.
Verses 10 through 12, the tone changes on a dime.
It really does. For in this mountain shall the hand of the Lord rest, and Moab shall be trodden down under him, even as straw is trodden down for the dunghill. Whoa! We just went from wines on the lees to straw on the dunghill. Why Moab? Why pick on them so specifically?
This is a crucial question. Why Moab? To understand this, we need the history. We have to know who the Moabites were.
They were the descendants of Lot, who was Abraham's nephew.
That's right. And they were born from let's just say, a very troubled and incestuous relationship between Lot and his daughter after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah.
So genetically, they were relatives of Israel.
Close relatives. And they lived just across the Dead Sea. On a clear day, you could see the land of Moab from the hills of Judea.
So they were neighbors.
Neighbors, but hostile ones.
Yeah.
They consistently opposed Israel. They refused them passage during the Exodus. They hired the prophet Balaam to curse Israel. They seduced Israel into idolatry and sexual immorality.
So there's a long, bad history there.
A very long, bad history. But in the prophetic imagination, Moab comes to represent something very specific. Isaiah 16.6 says it plainly. We have heard of the pride of Moab. He is very proud.
Right.
Moab is the archetype of pride. But it's a specific kind of pride. It represents the familiar enemy. Not the distant foreign Babylon, but the flesh, the relative who knows the truth, but ultimately rejects it. Moab represents those who are related to the truth. Maybe they grew up around it, they know the stories, but they refuse to submit to God.
And the imagery of the judgment here is, it's just humiliating. Trodden down for the dunghill.
It is graphic, and it is intentionally degrading. A dunghill is a manure pit. A septic tank. To be trodden down like straw into a manure pit is the ultimate loss of dignity. It is the exact polar opposite of the glory and honor of the feast on the mountain.
And then verse 11 gives us this weirdly specific and disturbing metaphor of a swimmer.
It's so strange, isn't it?
And he shall spread forth his hands in the midst of them, as he that swimmeth spreadeth forth his hands to swim. What is that about?
I want you to picture this. Picture someone falling into that cesspool, that dunghill we just talked about. What is their immediate frantic reaction?
They panic. They start flailing, treading water, trying to keep their head up.
They're swimming. They are doing the breaststroke, trying to keep their head above the filth.
Trying to stay afloat.
Right. It represents the utter futility of human effort to save oneself from judgment. Moab's proud. Moab thinks he is strong enough to swim. But when the hand of the Lord comes down, Moab is just a swimmer in a septic tank.
That is a vivid, horrifying picture of the futility of works-based salvation. You can swim all you want, you can use perfect technique, but you're just splashing around in judgment.
And the verse concludes, he shall bring down their pride together with the spoils of their hands. All the things they worked for, all the things they grasped for, the spoils, it all goes down into the filth with them.
And finally, verse 12. And the fortress of the high fort of thy walls shall he bring down, lay low, and bring to the ground, even to the dust.
And we are right back to the imagery of verse 2. The city becomes a heap. The fortress becomes dust. The cycle is complete.
It's like the chapter is presenting two and only two options.
You have two choices. The mountain of God, where the hand of the Lord rests in blessing and protection, or the dunghill of Moab, where the foot of the Lord treads in judgment.
It really is a tale of two locations, the city and the fortress versus the mountain.
Let's try to synthesize this a bit in section 7. What are we really looking at here? In this one chapter, we see sin illustrated in 3 distinct ways.
Okay, break it down for us.
First, sin is illustrated as a veil. It's blindness. We can't see reality as it truly is. Second, sin is illustrated as a storm and heat. It's oppression. It's the world hurting us and wearing us down. And third, sin is illustrated as a fortress. That's pride. That's us trying to protect ourselves without God.
And God deals with each one of those with a very specific and different action.
Exactly. The veil of blindness, he destroys it, he swallows it, he tears it open so we can finally see. The storm of oppression, he becomes a refuge and a shadow, allowing us to wait it out in safety. The fortress of pride, he tramples it into the dust.
The solution isn't a negotiation. It's not a compromise.
No. It is a divine conquest. And when we think about modern applications, this chapter reads like a critique of the 21st century.
The city of man is alive and well.
Think about our modern secular civilization. We have technological fortresses, we have economic palaces, we feel so permanent, so secure. We think we have solved the human condition with our own ingenuity.
But Isaiah says it's all incredibly fragile. It's
Right.
one shake away from being a heap.
And think about our denial of death. We really do not like to talk about death today. We hide it away in hospitals and nursing homes. We medicate grief. We put a filter on it for social media.
We have a very thick veil over death. We do our best to pretend it doesn't exist.
Exactly. But Isaiah 2:5 confronts it head on. It doesn't say death isn't so bad. It acknowledges that death is a monster that swallows people. But then it offers the only real solution: resurrection. Not distraction, but total victory.
And the feast. We are constantly feasting on
Yeah.
content, consumerism, scrolling through feeds.
But we are starving for marrow.
Yeah.
We are spiritually malnourished while stuffing ourselves with junk food. The world offers a feast that leaves you hungry. God offers the fat things that actually satisfy the soul.
I want to touch on the unseen spiritual interactions that were mentioned in our source material. The idea that this isn't just about politics and weather patterns.
Right. When the text speaks of the veil over all nations, we shouldn't just think of that as simple ignorance. 2 Corinthians 4:4 talks about the God of this world, who has blinded the minds of unbelievers. This suggests there's a demonic and active supernatural suppression of truth.
So when God destroys the veil on the mountain, it's actually an act of spiritual warfare.
It is an exorcism of the nations. And the councils of old, from verse 1, imply that what we see playing out in history, the rise and fall of nations, the politics, the wars, is the physical outworking of spiritual decrees that were made in eternity. Physical history is just the stage for a much larger spiritual drama.
So as we pull this all together, we have this dual message of encouragement and warning.
The encouragement is massive. Death is defeated. Your tears are noticed. God keeps track of them and will one day wipe them away with his own hand. Vindication is coming for those who wait for him.
And the warning.
Don't be Moab. Don't be the swimmer in the dunghill. Pride is a death sentence. If you try to save yourself by your own strokes, your own works, your own strength, your own pride, you will sink.
That brings us to our final section, Section 8. Our source material brought in this really cool theological bridge to Matthew 22, the render to Caesar passage. How does that fit in with Isaiah 25?
It fits perfectly with this tension between the city and the mountain. In Matthew 22, Jesus is asked about paying taxes to Caesar, who was the ruler of the city of man at that time.
Right.
He asks for a coin, and he says, "Whose image is this?" And they say, "Caesar's." And he gives that famous line, "Render to Caesar's the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's."
And we usually just interpret that as pay your taxes and go to church on Sunday.
But if you apply the lens of Isaiah 25, it gets much deeper. The city, personified by Caesar, demands your taxes, your allegiance, the coin. Fine, Jesus says, give it to him. The city is temporary. It's destined to become a heap anyway. But what belongs to God?
To God, the things that are God's.
Yeah, and what bears God's image?
We do. Humans.
You do. The coin bears Caesar's image. The human being bears God's image. So while we live in the city and we pay our dues, our whole self, our ultimate allegiance belongs to the mountain.
We have a kind of dual citizenship.
Yes, but one citizenship is eternal and the other one is destined for the dust. We render to Caesar his shiny metal coins, but we render to God our waiting, our trust, and our very selves. We don't build our fortress in Caesar's city. We wait for the Lord on his mountain.
That is a powerful way to look at it. We are living in the city, but we are waiting for the mountain.
Exactly.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Isaiah 25, it really does feel like this chapter acts as a kind of bridge.
It is the bridge between the judgment of the world and the eternal hope of the believer. It acknowledges all the darkness, the storm, the heat, the veil, the reality of death, but it doesn't leave us there. It pulls us up to the banquet table.
I just can't get that image of the swimmer out of my head. That final thought for our listeners. Are we trusting in our own strokes to keep us afloat?
It really is the ultimate question of the chapter. Are you thrashing around in the city of man, trying to stay on top by your own effort, your own pride? Or are you waiting? The swimmer is frantic, exhausted, and ultimately doomed. The waiter, the one waiting on God, is at peace, knowing the feast is prepared and their seat is saved.
A frantic swimmer or a patient guest at the banquet. That really is the choice.
That is the choice.
Thank you for unpacking this with us. It's been quite a journey from the dunghill all the way to the mountain peak.
It certainly has. A powerful chapter.
And to you listening, thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.